Europe's Ariane 5 rocket has blasted off for the final time, carrying two military satellites into orbit, taking off from French Guiana after a quarter of a century of service. It leaves the European Space Agency without independent access to space for the first time in over 40 years. The first test launch of Ariane 6 is expected next year. Well, let's talk to Robert Massey, Deputy Executive Director at the Royal Astronomical Society, and I'm delighted to say he joins us from the National Astronomy gathering in Cardiff. Robert, good to see you. Thanks very much for coming on the programme and nipping out of your exciting conference. This is an end of an era, I guess. I mean, what should we make of today? A red-letter day.
Yeah, I mean, look, this day was obviously going to come because no technology, no system lasts forever and it gets replaced. But it does have a great legacy. I mean, this is a system that had 117 launches, famously a streak of 82 successive launches without a failure over a period of 14 years. Really a very reliable workhorse system. And we should remember it did things like it launched ESA's first mission to the moon, Smart 1, back in 2003. It launched JWST, with the hugely famous James Webb Space Telescope just over a year and a half ago, and that's been clearly enormously successful. And it also did things like, another highlight is the automated transfer vehicle, a kind of robotic vehicle that delivered packages to the space station. And alongside that, obviously, there were numerous commercial clients. It's worth remembering that ESA markets Ariane space, providing that as well.
Robert, for those of us who are not distinguished astronomers, you almost make it sound like a taxi, but that's kind of what it is, isn't it?
It's certainly a taxi for delivering things into orbit. Yeah, I mean, it's not the cheapest taxi. I don't think we're going to be in a position where you've got an app on your phone just to put things into space for a few quid. But yes, I mean, it is that workhorse. It's that sort of. I've never seen a space launch. I've seen televised space launches. It's a doubtless tremendous thing to see, but there is an element of routine about it as well. Certainly from the spaceport in French Guiana at Kourou. Alongside this, you can reflect on the fact that technology is in some ways, the principle is quite old, using similar propulsion systems, more or less, to the ones that were in use in the 1960s. There's probably more regulation now around, say, the environmental impact on those, and yes, more sophistication in the way they work. I suppose if there was a change of some kind, and you might want to talk about this too, it's that we've recently seen SpaceX ramping up the reusability of some of the components, which I think is a really important change, where you get the stages coming back to the launch pad and slowly reducing the costs as well.
And we have to wait till next year for the test launch of Ariane 6. What is the step change? What is the leap in progress? Can you give us an idea?
Well, I mean, look, it's still a rocket. It's still using boosters and so on, but it does have a larger capacity. And if you want, I mean, from a scientist's perspective, if you want to put missions into interplanetary space, for example, then more powerful launchers are helpful for that. It's not so important for many commercial uses, although you can deliver multiple satellites at once, which actually also is something that SpaceX does a lot. But I think it is important that Europe has its own capacity too. I mean, some of the member states, like the UK, is trying to build up a launch system. But I genuinely think, no, we need that European heavy launch system. That kind of autonomy is very important. We shouldn't really be dependent entirely on the US. I mean, relations, obviously, and hopefully for the foreseeable future, are much better with the US than they are with, say, Roscosmos, where that's no longer an option. But I think it is really important that member countries of ESA, including the UK, have that access.